This week, we're going to talk about exchanging our blindness for God's vision, not his sight, his vision. Here in the gospel passage, Jesus does not just open the eyes of a blind man. He does more than just open his eyes. He gives him understanding. He increases his faith and deepens his hope. When Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, he found him and said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered and said, "Who is he, sir, that I may believe in him?" And Jesus said to him, "You have seen him, and the one speaking to you is he." He said, "I do believe, Lord." And he worshiped him. His faith was deepened. His understanding was deepened. It wasn't just opening his eyes to see. Increased faith, hope, and an understanding. The Pharisees, who actually can see, were the ones that were really blind because they actually saw a miracle, but they don't know the Messiah. They're blind to the Messiah. Somebody was healed, but they don't see the healer. They actually know that, sorry, Jesus, you're taking the Sabbath and you're violating it. You're not supposed to do any work on the Sabbath. But they don't see the Savior. It's basically the exchange. And that's what we're asking for this week. All those different exchanges, great. But we continue. We can't eat this elephant in one big bite. We need a little bit at a time. So here, what we're looking at is your blindness for vision. Our blindness is our reality, what we see, our problems. That's all we see. And we see our facts, what we have, what we can gather. That's the blindness. We don't see God's promise. We don't see his truth. We don't see his reality because we're blinded. When we talk about sight, we're talking about simply the physical aspect and information, the facts. That's all we're looking at because that's all we can see. And so therefore we see the world, we see the problems, we see the sin, we see the crosses, we see the challenges that are before us, but it's what our eyes can take in and it informs us. I tell you, sometimes we can see the problems mounting, can't we? We can see that the odds are against us. And then the sight begins to tell us, you can't do this. It's too much. It's impossible. It's too much. When we look at it strictly from the perspective of sight, that's the blindness. And that's the invitation for the exchange from sight to vision. The vision is simply around the spirituality or revelation. It's beginning to see the world, our problems, our challenges, but we see them in the sense that God is working in the world. We see him working in the world. We're not looking at just strictly from our sight, from our reality, but from God's reality. Now, that's revelation is, wait a minute. Yeah, well, there's a lot of challenges, there's a lot of problems, but somehow I see God working in the world. And we begin to see what we're like or what we can become in God's hands. Now, our problems, our pain, our difficulty, now it's just not overwhelming. There's a purpose behind this. There's an opportunity for something. We begin to see that underneath all the challenges, God is at work. Then what we could see through our sight that looked overwhelming or just too much or that we're too broken or we can't handle this, all of a sudden we begin to change and we say, God will make a way. God is restoring me. Or with God, all things are possible. It's that we're leaving God out. That's the blindness. That's the invitation this week to make that great exchange. No longer seeing from our perspective or from our reality or our facts, but from God's reality, from his trust, his truth, and his promise. I think that goes back to uncertainty for God's promise, doesn't it? It goes back to shame for his grace. Let me give you an example. There's 3 examples. I'll just talk about 2. I like the one with Moses and the Red Sea. Looking at it from the perspective of sight, just strictly sight. Israel has left Egypt. They're making their way through the desert. They come upon this Red Sea. They're like, uh-oh. They're sandwiched in. We've got a Red Sea. We don't have a boat. We don't have enough time. And now I got Pharaoh on my rear end. And now I'm sandwiched in, and we're all going to die. I got this army. They're ticked off. We killed their firstborn, all the different plagues. We destroyed their gods. We took their gold. They gave it to us. They are angry. From the sight, we're doomed. But from vision, oh, it changes. The impossible becomes possible. Who would have thought that sea would have split in 2? Who would have thought they would have gone into the Dead Sea, they would make it out on the other side, and all of a sudden it closes in, and every one of them are dead. And they find their bodies on the shoreline. Our blindness can overtake us where we think nothing is possible. But with God, even what we don't think is possible is possible. And the more that you and I begin to believe that and trust that and invite God into our life, things begin to change. That's the great exchange. That's the gift of being his son and his daughter. He's going to take care of me. I don't need the clarity. I don't need the control. I don't need the guarantee. All I have is his promise and his presence and his word. And he's not going to give me a map to tell me, here's what's going to happen next. Remember we talked about stepping out of the boat? We want the map. We want how long am I going to stay in the water? If I sink, what am I going to do? How long is this going to take? How do I get back? All that is not of God. That's all part of blindness. It's uncertainty for God's promise. I love the next one. It's David. You got this little guy, handsome, strong. You come up with this big old Goliath, right? And he's got a helmet on. He's got a sword. He's got shields. He's a warrior. He's got scars all over him. He's been in battle. He knows what it's like, and he's seeing this little kid. Human eyes, through sight, what are you seeing? We're dead. We're done. I'm waving the flag and say, sorry, you're sending me a kid? But through vision, what do we see? David was anointed. He was set apart. And for this moment, and the times he was practicing with his sling against the wolves and the different animals to protect the sheep, no one saw it coming. But he took the guy down, cut his head off. Victory. The impossible was possible. The great exchange. And the whole country was saved. Defeated. Let's just take a look at what it's like just to live solely by sight alone. It's limited. Yes, there's honesty there because we're taking in information. So what we're receiving is factual. Yes, I got this. But the enemy says, yeah, this is facts. This is true. You can see it. You got scientific evidence. But guess what? It's incomplete. And that's what the blindness is. We don't see the full picture, and all we do is react immediately. Oh, react versus responding. So all we see is a bank account that's empty. We see a bad relationship. We hear a diagnosis that was not good. And now all of a sudden, we go into hopelessness. We're overtaken by what we see, and it's not going to work, and I don't know what to do. So that hopelessness. But the exchange is, no, wait a minute. God's underneath this. He's at work. I don't know how. I don't need a guarantee. He already told me he'll never, ever leave me. Now the vision changes. Now I'm living in hope. I'm not living in blindness and despair, and I'm not tail spinning. If we're just simply living by sight alone, the sight, besides being limited, it's about control. Because if I can measure it, if I can manage it, if I can see it, if I can predict it, do I need God? No. I'm in control. I got it. I don't need to trust you. But we love that. That's the uncertainty for his promise. If we practiced it every single day that week, this all builds on each other. And then now, all of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute. Do I really want to be in charge? Self-reliance? I'm always going to mess up. We always look at the problems, but we forget to look at God's promises. Sight magnifies the problem, but what does vision do? How often do I forget to magnify God? All of a sudden, the problem is way too big for me, and I think it's bigger than God. And I don't even bring him into the picture. And now I go into, I can handle this. I got this. I can do this. And now I'm pushing an agenda. I'm rushing through it. I'm trying to control it. I'm getting overwhelmed. I'm getting stressed. And everybody around me is going nuts. Sight says, look how big the mountain is. But vision says, we forget that, don't we? Like, he's huge. And we forget how big God is. He created the universe. He knows you. Yes, you and I are going to suffer. Absolutely. He's not here to fix us. But your time and mine is short on this earth. We're preparing for eternity. Sight says, this is too much for me. But vision says, sight says, I can't. But vision says, do you believe it? Do you want the great exchange? It doesn't happen overnight. But if you and I each week try to put this into practice and go to confession every week like we offer after every single Mass, and we begin to put forth a little effort, that great exchange will become a great exchange. And then what you and I were meant for, which is greatness, begins to emerge. And we're no longer ruled by darkness or doubt or fear or worry. It's still going to happen, but not at the extent it does now. And all of a sudden, people start looking at you and I and thinking, what's wrong with you? Or they say, man, there's something different about you. You say, yeah, I'm trusting more. And they're going to want to know how. You're going to say, I just stepped out of the boat. Well, how'd you do it? I just stepped out of the boat of security. Why do kids have so much fun? Why are those kids yelling and screaming over there? Because they don't care. They're living in the moment. They're having fun. When I was growing up as a kid, man, I just had a blast. I didn't worry about anything. And when I don't worry about anything, everything just seems to click. You know what that tastes like. You know what that feels like because you've experienced it. And the reason why we don't experience it anymore is because we haven't made the exchange, or we did, for fun versus worry. We forgot to bring God into it all. And we don't see with his vision anymore. Where in your life are you living by sight alone? Just the physical, just the information. Because it ties into where have you let worry and wounds and pride cloud your vision? So all we're seeing is just with human eyes, but we're not seeing anymore with the vision of God. The spirituality of it and the revelation of it, that he is right there, that he's bigger than any of your worries. And then the third, where are you discouraged because of what you see? And where have you stopped believing because the facts look impossible? I've got cancer. My bank account's empty. My relationship's on the rocks. My spouse died. The facts look impossible. But maybe God has something really in store for you that you never thought possible. Amen? The great exchange. What is it for this week? Blindness for God's vision. Blindness, our blindness for God's vision. Very good. Thank you.